On my last video I mentioned that I had a problem with the seat. When I came to uncover it, I realised that it had been somewhat modified. Let's say the corners had been cut from it. You can see that the edges here have been cut away. I have ordered and received a replacement seat now, and if I put that into place, you can see the difference. Now this is the... You can see that it has these sharp corners, and at the front it follows the line of the tank and continues this line along the edge. And if I place this one on top, you can see the difference between the two. You can even see the marks where the previous owners cut the corner off. Goodness only knows why they did that. The other thing is that the foam that goes with this seat is, and I know it looks awful, but in better condition. The foam is the original shape, so it hasn't been messed with, although it is falling to bits. You can see there are bits missing. The side pieces are disintegrating, so it will need a bit of work to repair the foam. However, I'm quite lucky in the sense that I've got the old foam off the old seat, so being the same density, I should be able to take pieces of this and hopefully graft them into the new seat. The brackets themselves have rusted to almost nothing, but this isn't an issue because I already have a set of brackets off the original seat. In fact, these brackets have been modified as well, so the bit that holds the toolbox is being cut off. These pieces here have corroded almost completely to nothing, although it may be that I end up reusing them in some form or another. The other issue with it is that there is a hole that seems to have been punched through here. I don't quite know why that is, but the idea I have is to use some epoxy putty and plug that hole and then shape it. And also it looks like the rear wheel has been rubbing on the corner of this seat here and has melted this into this interesting shape. And you can see that damage coming through on the underside. Now this side, not an issue, covered by the seat cover. But this side, I think I will probably end up with a Dremel tool and a sanding head and just profile that to look neater. So a little bit of work. Oh, and also the heat shield here is knackered. So I'm going to take the heat shield off the old one and use pop rivets to replace that. I've selected the best of a bad bunch. This is the bracket that sits on the inside of the seat. This one is quite badly corroded, but I think there's just enough to use, and like I say, it's the best of a bad bunch. This will get cleaned up and painted, and I'm going to even up some of this roughness, but I think structurally it's strong enough to do its job. This is the one that had the bolts drilled out by a previous owner. There was just enough meat on there to get a slight tap in there. I'm going to see if I can get a heli coil to retain in there, do a couple of tests to make sure it's strong enough, and if that works, then this will be the piece we'll use. Okay, the brackets have been wire wheeled and sanded using the Dremel tool. I'm going to use phosphoric acid to convert the rust on this to something stable, which will allow me to paint it. The two outer brackets from the original seat, I'm going to use paint strip on these because they've got quite a lot of hard paint on there, so they're going to get a bath today, both of those, and take them back to bare metal, and again I use phosphoric acid on those as well. That took a damn sight more work than I was expecting to get those brackets off. One side was so badly rusted, just couldn't do anything with it at all, so I had to grind the lot off. Next job is removal of this heat shield, and then the removal of the heat shield off the old one so that we can switch them over. Now it's time to remove the good plate off the original seat, and we'll sort of reverse what we did before by starting with the big shield bit and then moving down to the smaller one. One heat shield ready for cleaning up. Now it's time to rust convert using phosphoric acid. I've got a solution here which is 45% strength, and it should turn the rust to a black grey finish. And then once that's done and rinsed, once that's rinsed off, I should be able to prime and paint it. In the past I've used electrolysis for this job, but I thought I'd use the acid as I already have it, and I've not experimented really with it yet, and at some point I'd like to have a look at the tank on the CB125 and see if we can convert the rust in that at some point. That's a project for later on in the year, but I'd like to get used to using this solution and see how good it really is. It's generally considered pretty good in the industry for converting the rust into a stable form of iron, which escapes me what the name of it is right now. All the areas on these more substantial plates have gone black, which suggests that it is actually converted to iron phosphate. However, the thin metal shield is still very red in colour, so I suspect that it'll need quite a bit of a soak. It is wafer thin as well, this thing. It's had a difficult life, but it is the better one of the two, so it is what we've got. I'll make sure that gets a good few coats of paint as well to help protect it in the future. So I'm just going to leave that for a few hours and see what happens. Okay, it's been a couple of hours. I'm going to neutralise these with water, dry them, and then get some etch primer on there quickly to stop them corroding. The next bit we have to remove or change over is this rubber flap. They're not great on either seat, but the replacement seat is definitely worse than the original one I have, so I'm going to have to get that out and do the same with the other one, switch them over. Bit of lubricant. Out. Damaged, still damaged, but still attached to the top there. So this is the one we're going to put into our replacement seat. And there are the parts, all with the etch primer drying, and hopefully tomorrow I'll get some black metal paint on all those parts, with the exception I think of the plate that goes underneath the seat. I think I might do that in silver, but we'll see.